Have you ever wondered why your mother's voice can instantly transport you to a place of rage that feels older than your own memories? Or why your father's silence cuts through you with a precision that seems almost supernatural, as if he knows exactly which ancient wound to reopen? What if I told you that these inexplicable family dynamics that drive you to the edge of sanity aren't random quirks of genetics or psychology, but actually the result of soul contracts made lifetimes before you ever drew your first breath in this world? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Think about it for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You walk into a family gathering feeling perfectly calm and centered, but within minutes, you find yourself reverting to behavioral patterns you swore you'd outgrown decades ago. Your successful career, your spiritual growth, your years of therapy, all of it seems to evaporate the moment your brother makes that particular comment or your sister gives you that look. It's as if some invisible force reaches across time itself to pull you back into dynamics that feel both frustratingly familiar and mysteriously ancient. Edgar Cayce, America's most documented psychic, and the man known as the Sleeping Prophet, spent over 4 decades channeling information that would revolutionize our understanding of family relationships. Through more than 14,000 documented readings conducted from his home along the Atlantic coast, Cayce revealed something that most families sense but can never quite articulate. The people closest to us aren't just random biological connections, but souls we've danced with across centuries, playing out cosmic dramas that span multiple lifetimes. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you see every family argument, every inexplicable attraction, and every seemingly impossible pattern that has plagued your lineage for generations. Cayce's readings revealed that before we incarnate into physical form, our souls actually meet in what he called the borderland between worlds, carefully orchestrating which roles we'll play for each other in the upcoming lifetime. That overbearing parent who never seems satisfied? That sibling who always pushes your buttons with surgical precision? That family member who triggers reactions in you that feel disproportionate to the actual circumstances? These aren't accidents of birth or unfortunate personality clashes. According to Cayce's documented cases, these are souls who loved you enough in the spiritual realm to volunteer for the often thankless job of being your greatest teachers, even if it means being misunderstood, resented, or blamed in this lifetime. The intensity of your reactions isn't just emotional volatility, it's soul memory surfacing, ancient agreements being fulfilled, and karmic debts being balanced through the intimate crucible of family life. Has this ever happened to you? You meet someone for the first time, yet something about them feels hauntingly familiar? Or perhaps you've experienced the opposite. A family member you've known your entire life sometimes feels like a complete stranger, as if you're looking at them through layers of time you can't quite penetrate. Cayce's readings suggest these experiences point to something far more profound than simple psychology or genetics. What you're about to discover might surprise you, but the evidence Cayce presented spans thousands of documented cases, complete with historical verification and follow-up reports that tracked families for years after their readings. These weren't vague generalizations or feel-good platitudes, but specific, detailed accounts of how souls choose their family members with the precision of a master choreographer, designing an intricate ballet. The patterns playing out in your living room right now, the triggers that seem to activate automatically whenever certain family members speak, the inexplicable bonds that feel stronger than blood itself. All of this takes on entirely new meaning when viewed through the lens of reincarnation and soul contracts. But understanding this is just the beginning. The transformation in how we perceive family relationships becomes even more profound when you consider the 3 revolutionary discoveries that emerged from Cayce's work. The first revelation that shook even his closest associates was the discovery that our current family members have literally played completely different roles in our past lives. That domineering mother who seems to control every aspect of your decisions, she might have been your devoted student in ancient times, looking to you for spiritual guidance. Your rebellious teenager who challenges your authority at every turn, Perhaps they were once the strict parent while you were the one pushing boundaries. This role reversal isn't some cosmic joke or random shuffle of personalities. It's a carefully orchestrated journey designed to give each soul the complete human experience. The impact of understanding this single truth has helped thousands of families navigate conflicts that previously seemed insurmountable. When you realize that the family member who triggers your deepest frustrations might actually be offering you the exact lesson your soul requested before this incarnation, everything shifts. The second discovery cuts even deeper into the hidden truth behind family dynamics. Cayce revealed why certain relatives trigger reactions in us that feel completely disproportionate to the actual situation. That sibling whose success fills you with inexplicable resentment, or that parent whose approval you crave despite being a fully independent adult. These intense emotional responses aren't psychological quirks. They're soul memories, breaking through the veil. Ancient experiences bubbling up from lifetimes where the stakes were much higher, where betrayals cut deeper, where love meant survival itself. The third revelation might be the most transformative of all. We're not just randomly working through old baggage. Each family unit has specific karmic lessons designed to accelerate spiritual growth in ways that would be impossible to achieve alone. The mindset shift this creates is remarkable. Suddenly, that family gathering isn't just an obligation or a source of stress. It becomes a graduate-level course in patience, forgiveness, and unconditional love. What makes Cayce's work so compelling isn't just the spiritual insights, but the meticulous documentation behind the scenes. Operating from his coastal home for over 4 decades, from 1901 to 1944, Cayce didn't just offer feel-good spiritual platitudes. Nearly 2,500 of his documented readings dealt specifically with family relationships and past life connections, complete with names, dates, and historical circumstances that families could actually verify through research. These weren't vague statements that could apply to anyone. Cayce would describe specific ancient civilizations, particular roles individuals played, exact relationships between souls, and even geographical locations where past life dramas unfolded. Families would leave his sessions with detailed information they could investigate, and remarkably, historical research often confirmed the most unlikely details. The revelations didn't stop at the reading sessions either. Cayce's files contain hundreds of follow-up reports from families who applied his insights and witnessed dramatic transformations in relationships that had been stuck in destructive patterns for decades. The journey from conflict to understanding, from resentment to compassion, from ancient karma to present-day healing, all of it documented with the precision of a scientific study. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic and share with you some of the most extraordinary documented cases from Cayce's archives, stories that will completely change how you see the people sitting around your dinner table. Write in the comments, "This explains everything," if you're starting to see your family relationships in a completely new light. One of the most powerful transformation stories from Cayce's archives involves a woman who came to him absolutely exhausted by her mother's relentless need to control every aspect of her life. The impact this relationship was having on her mental health had reached a breaking point. Every conversation became a battle of wills, every decision required her mother's approval, and every attempt at independence was met with guilt, manipulation, or outright emotional warfare. During reading 2067 D1, Cayce revealed something that completely reframed this modern family drama. In ancient Egypt, these two souls had worked together in the sacred temples along the Nile River. But their roles were dramatically different from what you might expect. The woman who was now the controlling mother had been a commanding officer in the temple hierarchy, responsible for overseeing complex spiritual ceremonies and managing dozens of subordinate priests. The daughter, in that ancient lifetime, had been one of those subordinate priests under her command. But here's where the story gets fascinating. This subordinate priest had a rebellious streak that constantly challenged the commanding officer's authority. She questioned decisions, pushed boundaries, and created tension within the temple structure. The commanding officer, frustrated by this insubordination, had responded with increasingly rigid control measures, creating a power struggle that defined their entire working relationship. The hidden truth behind their current family dynamic suddenly became crystal clear. They had returned as mother and daughter to resolve this ancient power struggle, but with a crucial twist. The roles were now reversed in terms of spiritual knowledge and insight. The daughter now possessed the spiritual understanding that the mother was desperately seeking, yet the mother's soul was still operating from that old template of needing to maintain control and authority. What happened next reveals the true power behind understanding these soul connections. 6 months after receiving this reading, the woman wrote back to Cayce with a report that stunned even his experienced team. The transformation in their relationship had been nothing short of miraculous. Instead of seeing her mother's controlling behavior as a personal attack on her freedom and autonomy, she began recognizing it as spiritual insecurity, a soul desperately trying to maintain a sense of purpose and authority that had once been central to her identity. This shift in mindset created a ripple effect that changed everything. The daughter stopped reacting defensively to her mother's control attempts and instead began responding with compassion and patience. She started sharing her own spiritual insights gently, offering guidance rather than rebellion. The mother, no longer meeting resistance, gradually began to relax her grip and actually started seeking her daughter's wisdom rather than trying to impose her own will. The journey from conflict to harmony happened almost overnight once both souls recognized the ancient pattern they were playing out. The decisions they made and how to interact with each other were no longer driven by unconscious karmic programming, but by conscious awareness of their spiritual purpose together. But this story represents just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding how soul memories surface in our daily family interactions. The revelations get even more extraordinary when we explore how these past life dynamics create the intense emotional triggers that can turn a simple family dinner into an emotional battlefield. Write in the comments, "I see the pattern now," if this story is helping you recognize similar dynamics in your own family relationships. The journey into understanding these intense family reactions takes us into territory that most psychology textbooks never dare to explore. Those moments when your blood pressure spikes instantly at the sound of a particular family member's voice, or when someone's success triggers a rage so profound it surprises even you. These aren't character flaws or unresolved childhood issues that can be talked away in therapy sessions. They're soul memories breaking through the surface of conscious awareness, carrying the emotional weight of experiences that happened centuries before your current birth. The transformation in how we interpret these reactions becomes crucial when we realize that what feels like an overreaction in the present moment might actually be a perfectly appropriate response to something that happened in a completely different lifetime. Your nervous system is responding to real trauma, real betrayal, real loss. It's just that the original events occurred when you wore a different face and answered to a different name. One of the most revealing cases in Cayce's documented files involves a successful businessman who sought help because he couldn't understand the inexplicable rage that consumed him whenever his younger brother achieved any kind of success. The impact this jealousy was having on his life was devastating. Every promotion his brother received, every business deal that went well, every moment of happiness in his brother's life felt like a personal attack on his own worth and security. During reading 1772, Cayce revealed the hidden truth behind this seemingly irrational emotional response. In colonial Massachusetts, during the early days of American settlement, these two souls had been business partners running a profitable trading post along one of the major commercial routes. They had built their enterprise from nothing, working side by side through harsh winters and economic uncertainties, creating what should have been a legacy of shared prosperity. But greed and opportunity shifted the trajectory of their partnership in ways that would echo across lifetimes. The younger soul, driven by decisions that prioritized immediate gain over loyalty, systematically cheated his partner out of his rightful share of the business. Through carefully orchestrated behind-the-scenes manipulation, forged documents, and strategic lies to their suppliers and customers, he managed to push his partner completely out of the trading post they had built together. The betrayal didn't just end with financial loss. The displaced partner, now financially ruined, and with no resources to start over in the harsh colonial environment, descended into poverty and despair. The stress and heartbreak of losing everything he had worked for, combined with the brutal realities of survival in that era, led to his death in complete destitution. His final thoughts were consumed not just with his own suffering, but with the bitter knowledge that his former partner was thriving, using the foundation they had built together. These soul memories don't fade with death. They imprint themselves into the very fabric of our spiritual DNA, waiting for the opportunity to resurface when the same souls encounter each other again. The businessman's rage wasn't about his brother's current success at all. It was his soul recognizing the same energy signature that had once destroyed everything he had worked for, triggering an ancient wound that demanded acknowledgement and healing. Now, let me share with you how Cayce explained the deeper spiritual mechanics behind why we choose to incarnate with the very souls who have caused us the greatest pain. Because the revelations about soul contracts will completely change how you see your most difficult family relationships. Write in the comments. The pieces are connecting if you're starting to understand why certain family members trigger such intense reactions in you. The deeper we explore these soul connections, the more a startling pattern emerges that challenges everything we think we know about family bonds. In reading 25:4-6-8, one of Cayce's most profound revelations, he shared a truth that his stenographer found so shocking she had to pause the session to absorb its implications. Those we're closest to in this current lifetime, the family members who occupy our thoughts, who can make us laugh until our sides hurt, or rage until we see red, are often the very souls with whom we have the most unresolved karma from previous incarnations. This hidden truth explains the magnetic pull we feel toward certain family members, even when the relationship is complicated or painful. That sibling you can't stop thinking about despite years of conflict, that parent whose approval still matters more than it logically should, that child who can break your heart with a single glance. These intense bonds aren't just biological programming or psychological attachment, they're spiritual magnetism, drawing together souls who have unfinished business that spans centuries. The impact of understanding this dynamic transforms how we interpret the push and pull of family relationships. That inexplicable mixture of love and frustration you feel toward certain relatives suddenly makes perfect sense. Your soul recognizes theirs across the veil of time, remembering both the deep connection you've shared and the wounds that still need healing. The attraction exists because the love is real and ancient, but the conflict persists because the lessons remain incomplete. But here's where Cayce's revelations become truly extraordinary, revealing the behind-the-scenes orchestration that happens before we ever take our first breath. Souls don't randomly end up in families through some cosmic lottery system. The journey toward incarnation involves a conscious selection process where souls actually choose their family members with the precision of a master strategist planning the ultimate transformation experience. Before birth, in what Cayce described as the planning realms between physical incarnations, souls gather to design their upcoming lifetime together. Picture this: a council of souls who have shared multiple lifetimes, examining their collective karma like directors reviewing a complex screenplay. They analyze which roles need to be played, which lessons require learning, and which ancient debts demand resolution. Then, in an act of profound spiritual courage, they make decisions about who will play what part in the upcoming family drama. The soul who will become your controlling parent volunteers for that difficult role, knowing they may be misunderstood and resented for decades. The soul who will be your rebellious teenager agrees to challenge your authority, even though it means sacrificing a peaceful relationship for the sake of your mutual growth. The soul who will become your sibling rival accepts the burden of triggering your jealousy and insecurity, understanding that this friction is necessary to polish away your ego and reveal your true spiritual strength. This mindset shift changes everything about blame, victimhood, and family resentment. When you realize that your most challenging family member may have been your closest spiritual companion, who loved you enough to volunteer for the thankless job of being your greatest teacher, Every family conflict becomes an opportunity for profound healing, rather than just another source of stress and frustration. Now, I want to explore one of the most documented and dramatic examples from Cayce's files that perfectly illustrates how these soul contracts play out in ways that seem almost too extraordinary to believe, yet were verified through historical research and follow-up reports spanning decades. Write in the comments, "This changes everything," if you're beginning to see your difficult family relationships as spiritual partnerships rather than random conflicts. The genius behind these soul contracts becomes even more apparent when you examine the intricate role reversals that occur across lifetimes. The transformation in perspective that souls experience by literally walking in each other's shoes creates a depth of understanding that would be impossible to achieve any other way. That overbearing father who seems to micromanage every aspect of your life? In a previous incarnation, he may have been the neglected child, desperate for attention and guidance that never came. The rebellious teenager who challenges your authority at every turn might have been the stern, uncompromising parent in another lifetime, learning now what it feels like to be on the receiving end of rigid control. These role reversals aren't random cosmic shuffles, but carefully orchestrated learning experiences designed to give each soul the complete human experience. The impact of this perspective shift is profound because it eliminates the possibility of one soul always being the victim and another always being the aggressor. Every soul gets to experience both sides of every dynamic, creating a deep empathy and understanding that transcends any single lifetime's limitations. The hidden truth behind family scapegoats becomes particularly fascinating when viewed through this lens. That family member who everyone seems to blame for everything, who can never seem to do anything right in the eyes of their relatives, may have been the golden child in previous incarnations, the one who was praised, favored, and held up as the standard everyone else had to meet. Now they're experiencing the shadow side of family dynamics, learning humility while teaching their family members about unconditional love and acceptance. One of the most dramatic documented cases in Cayce's archives perfectly illustrates how these ancient role dynamics can create seemingly impossible family situations that make no sense from a conventional perspective. A desperate mother came to Cayce in the winter of 1932 because her two young sons, ages 9 and 11, fought with such savage intensity that she genuinely feared one would seriously harm the other. These weren't typical sibling squabbles over toys or territory. These were violent, primal battles that seemed to tap into something far deeper than childhood rivalry. Traditional discipline had failed completely. Timeouts, removing privileges, even physical separation couldn't break the cycle of aggression that erupted whenever the boys were in the same room. The family had consulted doctors, child psychologists, and even considered sending one of the children to live with relatives, but nothing seemed to address the root cause of their inexplicable hostility toward each other. During reading 9872, Cayce revealed a past life connection so dramatic it initially seemed impossible to believe. In ancient Rome, during the height of the gladiatorial games, these two souls had been professional fighters who earned their living through combat in the great arenas. They had trained together, fought alongside each other against wild beasts and other gladiators, and developed the kind of brotherhood that only emerges between warriors who have faced death together countless times. But their final encounter in the arena had been orchestrated by circumstances beyond their control. Forced by their masters to fight each other to the death for the entertainment of the crowds, the older soul had ultimately killed his younger companion in their last match. The victory brought him no joy. Instead, he was consumed by grief and guilt for having taken the life of someone he considered a brother. The emotional trauma was so severe that he died shortly afterward, his heart broken by what he had been forced to do. The soul memories from this traumatic death were still playing out through their childhood conflicts, their small bodies unconsciously reenacting the ancient battle that had ended in such devastating loss and regret. Now, let me share with you the specific healing technique Cayce recommended for this family that not only stopped the violence, but transformed these two boys into inseparable companions, because the method he used reveals the incredible power of understanding soul connections for healing even the most impossible family situations. Write in the comments, "Souls remember everything," if this story is helping you understand that family conflicts often have much deeper roots than we realize. The healing technique Cayce recommended for these gladiator brothers reveals something profound about how soul wounds can be addressed when we understand their true origin. Rather than treating this as a behavioral problem that required punishment or separation, Cayce guided the mother toward a spiritual approach that would heal the ancient trauma at its source. He recommended specific prayers and visualizations that she should perform each morning before her sons woke up, creating an energetic healing space around their souls. The transformation that followed was nothing short of miraculous. The mother was instructed to visualize both boys surrounded by brilliant white light, while mentally sending forgiveness to both souls for the pain they had experienced in that Roman arena. She was to see them not as problem children, but as ancient warriors who had loved each other deeply and were still carrying the grief of their forced separation. The prayers weren't just words, but energetic transmissions that began dissolving the soul memories that were driving their compulsive conflicts. Within 2 months of following Cayce's guidance, these two boys who had been mortal enemies became inseparable best friends. The violent outbursts stopped completely, and they began displaying the kind of loyalty and protectiveness toward each other that had characterized their relationship as gladiator brothers in Rome. The impact on the entire family was extraordinary. What had been their greatest source of stress became their greatest joy as they watched their sons discover the deep love that had always existed beneath the ancient trauma. But this story reveals something even more profound about the hidden truth behind family connections. The journey these souls were on wasn't just about resolving negative karma or healing old wounds. Their bond as gladiator brothers had been forged in love, loyalty, and mutual respect. They had chosen to incarnate together not because they had to work through something dark, but because they wanted to continue their spiritual partnership in a new form. This shifts the entire mindset around family karma from something we have to endure to something we get to experience. Cayce's readings revealed that family relationships aren't solely about working through negative patterns from the past. Many families are actually soul groups that have been together across millennia, drawn to each other lifetime after lifetime, not by karmic debt, but by genuine love and shared spiritual purpose. Think about your own family for a moment. Beyond the conflicts and challenges, there's often an inexplicable bond that goes deeper than blood or genetics. That sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than yourself, of sharing inside jokes and understanding that doesn't require explanation. These connections point to souls who have chosen to journey together, not because they have to, but because they want to continue growing and learning as a unified spiritual family. The decisions these soul groups make about incarnating together are driven by love rather than obligation. They're like cosmic study groups who have discovered that they learn better together, who have developed a rhythm and dynamic that accelerates everyone's spiritual evolution. The challenges they face aren't punishments, but refinements, like master craftsmen polishing precious stones to reveal their inner brilliance. Now, I want to explore one of the most beautiful examples from Cayce's files of a soul group that has been working together for thousands of years, because their story will completely change how you see your own family's deeper spiritual purpose and the incredible love that has brought you all together across time. Write in the comments, "We chose each other," if you're beginning to feel that your family connections go much deeper than just this one lifetime. One of the most extraordinary soul group stories in Cayce's documented files involves a family that had been working together for thousands of years, their journey spanning from the legendary civilization of Atlantis to their current incarnation in modern times. In reading 1436, Cayce revealed to this family that during Atlantis's golden age, they had served together as healers and spiritual teachers in what he called the Temple of Healing, one of the most sacred institutions in that advanced civilization. Their roles in Atlantis had been perfectly synchronized, like instruments in a divine orchestra. The father had been the head healer, possessing an intuitive understanding of the human energy system that allowed him to diagnose spiritual and physical ailments simply by observing a person's aura. The mother had been a master of herbal medicine and crystal healing, able to create remedies that worked on multiple, dimensional levels simultaneously. Their children had served as assistants and students, learning the sacred arts, while contributing their own unique gifts to the healing work. But what made their story truly remarkable was the commitment they had made to each other before Atlantis fell. Sensing that their civilization was heading toward destruction, this soul group made a profound decision that would echo across millennia. They pledged to find each other lifetime after lifetime, to continue their collaborative spiritual work, regardless of what roles they might play or what challenges they might face together. The impact of this ancient commitment explained everything about their current family dynamics. Even when they disagreed, even when they frustrated each other, there was an underlying current of respect and recognition that transcended their temporary personality conflicts. They instinctively knew how to support each other's spiritual growth, often without conscious awareness of why certain approaches felt so natural and effective. The transformation in how they saw their family challenges became profound once they understood this background. What they had interpreted as problems or dysfunction were actually the refinement process at work, not punishments for past mistakes, but the careful polishing that reveals inner brilliance. Like a master jeweler working with precious stones, their souls were using family friction to wear away the rough edges that prevented their true spiritual nature from shining through. This hidden truth explains why some families maintain unbreakable bonds despite facing serious problems together. The connection goes far beyond genetics, shared experiences, or even psychological attachment. It's soul recognition operating at the deepest level, an ancient knowing that transcends the temporary roles they're playing in this particular lifetime. The decisions these soul groups make about how to navigate their current challenges are informed by wisdom accumulated across centuries of working together. They've learned each other's patterns, strengths, and growth edges through countless shared experiences. What looks like stubborn family dynamics from the outside is actually a sophisticated spiritual dance, choreographed by souls who know exactly what each member needs for their continued evolution. The journey these families are on together has a momentum that carries them through difficulties that would tear apart relationships based solely on personality compatibility or shared interests. When conflicts arise, there's often an underlying trust that transcends the immediate situation, a knowing that this temporary friction serves a larger purpose in their collective spiritual development. Now, I want to share with you one of the most challenging cases from Cayce's archives that demonstrates how understanding these soul connections can break even the most destructive generational patterns, because what this family discovered about their shared past lives will show you just how far back these spiritual bonds can reach. Write in the comments, "My family is my soul group," if you're recognizing that your deepest family bonds transcend this single lifetime and connect to something much more ancient and purposeful. One of the most challenging generational patterns Cayce ever encountered involved a lineage where intelligent, capable women consistently found themselves attracted to men struggling with alcohol addiction. This wasn't a case of poor judgment or low self-esteem. These were accomplished women with successful careers, strong family values, and clear awareness of the destructive nature of addiction. Yet generation after generation, they made the same devastating decisions, creating a cycle that seemed impossible to break through conventional understanding. In reading 33561, Cayce revealed that this pattern stretched back nearly 1,000 years to the time of the Crusades, when these souls had been part of a religious community dedicated to serving pilgrims and soldiers traveling to the Holy Land. The men in this community had taken sacred vows of poverty, chastity, and spiritual discipline, presenting themselves as models of holy living to those they served. Their reputation for purity and devotion had made their monastery a beacon of hope for weary travelers seeking spiritual guidance and physical healing. But behind the scenes, a hidden truth was festering that would create karmic consequences lasting for centuries. These same men who preached temperance and spiritual discipline during the day were secretly indulging in wine and other excesses during the night, using their positions of religious authority to justify their hypocrisy. They had convinced themselves that their service to God during daylight hours somehow balanced their indulgences in darkness, creating a split existence that corrupted their spiritual development. The transformation in how we understand enabling behavior becomes crystal clear when we examine the women's role in this ancient dynamic. Rather than being innocent victims of male addiction, these women had been active participants in maintaining the deception. As members of the same religious community, they had discovered the men's secret behaviors but made conscious decisions to cover for them, understanding that exposure would destroy not only individual reputations, but the entire community's ability to serve pilgrims and maintain their sacred mission. Their complicity wasn't born from weakness, but from a misplaced sense of loyalty and spiritual duty. They believed they were protecting something greater than themselves, that preserving the facade of holiness served a higher purpose than confronting the reality of addiction and hypocrisy. They became expert enablers, making excuses, covering evidence, and creating elaborate systems to hide the truth from the outside world while the addiction continued to spread and deepen within their community. The impact of these decisions created a karmic pattern that would echo across lifetimes, binding these souls together in an endless cycle of addiction and enabling that they couldn't break through willpower alone. They had incarnated together repeatedly, lifetime after lifetime, unconsciously recreating the same dynamic, men using spiritual or noble justifications for their addictive behaviors, and women believing that their love and protection could somehow heal what only honest confrontation and spiritual accountability could address. The journey toward breaking this pattern required understanding the difference between genuine spiritual support and enabling behaviors that masquerade as love. True spiritual support involves holding someone accountable to their highest potential, even when it means allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. Enabling, disguised as compassion, actually prevents the growth that comes from facing reality and making difficult but necessary changes. Now, let me share with you the specific moment when this thousand-year pattern finally began to break, because the decision one woman made to choose differently created a ripple effect that would heal not just her own lineage, but demonstrate the incredible power we each have to transform generational karma through conscious choice. Write in the comments, breaking the cycle, if you're recognizing patterns in your own family that might have roots reaching back much further than anyone realized. The moment of transformation came when one woman in this lineage received Cayce's reading and truly understood the ancient pattern she was perpetuating. Armed with this knowledge, she faced the most difficult decision of her life. She was engaged to a man she genuinely loved, someone who seemed different from the alcoholics her mother and grandmother had married. But as their wedding approached, she began recognizing the familiar signs, the rationalizations, the hidden drinking, the spiritual justifications for behavior that was slowly destroying his life and would inevitably destroy theirs together. The impact of her decision to break the engagement sent shockwaves through both families, who couldn't understand why she would walk away from what appeared to be a good man with simply a small drinking problem. But she had glimpsed the hidden truth behind centuries of enabling and knew that marrying him would perpetuate the cycle for another generation. Instead of focusing her energy on trying to save him, she made the radical choice to focus on her own spiritual development, understanding that healing herself was the only way to heal the lineage. This decision required enormous courage because it meant facing the loneliness and social judgment that came with choosing spiritual growth over romantic security. She spent years working on herself, learning to distinguish between genuine love and codependent attraction, between spiritual service and enabling behavior. The journey wasn't easy, but it created a completely different energetic template for future relationships. The transformation became evident when her daughter came of age, in an environment where spiritual commitment and personal accountability were valued above charm and potential. Having grown up watching her mother choose self-respect over settling for dysfunction, the daughter naturally gravitated toward a partner who shared her commitment to genuine spiritual growth rather than someone who used spirituality as an excuse for avoiding responsibility. But breaking generational patterns isn't just about making different choices in our current relationships. Cayce revealed that the healing work could extend backward and forward in time, affecting ancestors who had already passed and descendants not yet born. In reading 1292, he outlined what he called the family forgiveness meditation, a technique so powerful that families worldwide still use it today with remarkable results. The meditation begins each morning with visualizing your entire family tree as a luminous tree of light, where each family member, living or deceased, appears as a glowing leaf connected to the same spiritual source. This visualization creates an energetic bridge across time, allowing healing energy to flow both backward to ancestors and forward to future generations. Once this connection is established, you send specific forgiveness to each family member for any wrongs committed in this lifetime or previous incarnations, releasing resentment and blame that may have been carried for centuries. But the process doesn't stop with forgiveness. The final step involves sending gratitude for the lessons learned together, acknowledging that even the most painful family experiences have served your soul's evolution in ways you may not fully understand until much later. This gratitude transforms victim consciousness into spiritual wisdom, shifting the entire family dynamic from one of suffering to one of purposeful growth. Now, I want to share with you the most remarkable aspect of this meditation technique, the documented cases where practicing it created healing effects that seem to defy the laws of time and space, because what families experienced will challenge everything you think you know about how healing actually works. Write in the comments, "Healing across time," if you're ready to try this meditation and see what changes in your own family dynamics. The most extraordinary aspect of Cayce's family forgiveness meditation lies in its ability to transcend the linear boundaries of time itself. According to his readings, souls exist in a state of eternal connection that isn't limited by physical death or birth. When you send healing energy to your family line during meditation, you're not just affecting people in your current reality. You're actually reaching across dimensional barriers to touch souls who lived centuries ago and those who haven't yet incarnated. This hidden truth about how spiritual healing works challenges everything we think we know about cause and effect. The transformation you create in meditation today can literally change the spiritual DNA of your entire ancestral line, healing wounds that have been passed down through generations, and creating better conditions for souls who will join your family in the future. It's as if you're becoming a spiritual time traveler, carrying healing energy both backward and forward through your lineage. One of the most documented cases from Cayce's archives perfectly illustrates this phenomenon. A woman from the Midwest began practicing the family forgiveness meditation consistently each morning for 6 months, focusing particularly on healing the resentment she carried toward her father, who had abandoned the family when she was 12. They hadn't spoken in over 20 years, and she had convinced herself that she was better off without his toxic influence in her life. The impact of her meditation practice began manifesting in ways that seemed almost too extraordinary to believe. 3 months into her daily practice, her estranged father called her completely out of the blue to apologize for 20 years of silence. He couldn't explain what had prompted him to reach out. He simply said he had been having dreams about her and felt an overwhelming need to make amends for the pain he had caused. The conversation that followed was the first honest communication they had shared since her childhood. But the healing effects didn't stop there. Her rebellious teenage daughter, who had been angry and secretive for months, suddenly began confiding in her again. Without any conscious knowledge of her mother's meditation practice, the daughter started sharing her struggles with school, relationships, and her own inner conflicts. The atmosphere in their home shifted from tension and walking on eggshells to genuine communication and mutual support. Perhaps most remarkably, the woman began having vivid dreams featuring ancestors she had never met, great-grandmothers, distant relatives, and family members who had died long before her birth. In these dreams, these ancestral souls appeared to thank her for the healing work she was doing, explaining how her forgiveness was releasing pain they had carried even in death. Some shared family secrets that helped her understand long-standing patterns, while others simply expressed gratitude for being freed from centuries of accumulated resentment and blame. The journey these souls were taking toward healing involved a level of interconnectedness that most people never realize exists. The decisions this woman made in her morning meditation were creating ripple effects across multiple generations, proving that individual spiritual work can have collective impact that extends far beyond the person doing the practice. Now, I want to reveal the most profound discovery Cayce made about the true purpose behind these challenging family relationships, because understanding why certain family members serve as our greatest teachers will completely transform how you see the people who trigger you most intensely. Write in the comments, "Time is an illusion," if you're beginning to understand that your healing work can affect your entire family line across all of time. The most profound revelation in Cayce's work emerges when we examine what happens in the spiritual realm before souls choose to incarnate together as a family. In what he described as the borderland between physical and spiritual dimensions, souls gather in what can only be called planning sessions to design their upcoming lifetime together. Picture this: a group of souls who have shared multiple incarnations, sitting together in a state of pure love and wisdom, examining their collective spiritual curriculum like master teachers preparing the ultimate learning experience. The transformation in how we understand difficult family relationships becomes revolutionary when we realize that these planning sessions involve souls voluntarily accepting roles that may make them appear to be the villains in each other's stories. That parent who seems incapable of showing approval, that sibling who constantly triggers your insecurities, that child who rebels against everything you've tried to teach them. These souls may have actually volunteered for these challenging roles because they love you enough to sacrifice their own comfort and reputation for your spiritual growth. The hidden truth behind family dynamics reveals itself when we understand that souls in the spiritual realm see the bigger picture that our human perspective cannot grasp. They know that patience can only be developed through situations that test it, that forgiveness can only be mastered when there's something significant to forgive, and that self-worth can only be built when external validation is withheld. So they make the ultimate loving sacrifice, agreeing to be misunderstood, blamed, and even hated in this lifetime, so that their beloved soul companions can develop the spiritual qualities they need most. The impact of this perspective shift is profound because it eliminates the victim-perpetrator dynamic that keeps families stuck in cycles of blame and resentment. When you realize that your most challenging family member may have been your dearest friend in the spirit realm, someone who loved you so deeply that they were willing to carry the burden of being difficult in this incarnation, every conflict becomes an opportunity for profound appreciation rather than just another source of frustration. The journey toward understanding these soul contracts requires us to look beyond the surface personality conflicts and see the spiritual curriculum at work. That critical parent who never seems satisfied with your achievements, they may have agreed to withhold approval so you could learn to find validation from within yourself rather than depending on others for your sense of worth. That family member who always seems to get the lucky breaks while you struggle, they might be helping you develop inner strength and resilience that can only be forged through facing challenges without external support. The decisions these souls make in the spiritual realm are based on a love so profound that it transcends the temporary pain of playing difficult roles. They understand that the greatest gift they can give each other isn't a lifetime of ease and comfort, but the specific challenges that will accelerate spiritual evolution and help each soul discover their true divine nature beneath all the human programming and conditioning. Behind the scenes of what appears to be family dysfunction, there's often an incredibly sophisticated spiritual dance taking place, where each soul is perfectly playing their part in everyone else's awakening process. Now, let me share with you one of the most documented cases from Cayce's archives that perfectly illustrates this principle of loving sacrifice, because this story will show you how understanding the spiritual purpose behind difficult relationships can transform even the most painful family dynamics into opportunities for profound healing and growth. Write in the comments, "Divine Love in Action," if you're beginning to see your difficult family relationships as spiritual partnerships, designed with perfect love and wisdom The concept of the critical parent takes on an entirely new dimension when viewed through the lens of pre-incarnation planning. That parent who seems impossible to please, whose approval feels perpetually out of reach, may have been your most devoted spiritual mentor in the between-life state. In the realm of pure consciousness, this soul looked at your spiritual development needs and made the difficult decision to withhold the very approval you would crave most, understanding that this challenging dynamic would force you to develop an unshakable sense of self-worth that comes from within rather than from external validation. The transformation in how we interpret parental criticism becomes profound when we realize it might be the ultimate expression of spiritual love. This soul sacrificed the joy of being seen as a loving, supportive parent in order to give you the gift of inner strength that can only be developed through learning to validate yourself. The impact of this realization has helped countless people move from resentment toward appreciation for the spiritual training they received, even when it came disguised as constant dissatisfaction. One of the most remarkable cases documenting this principle involves a successful businessman who came to Cayce tormented by guilt over his treatment of his gentle younger sister throughout their childhood. He had been mercilessly cruel to her, bullying her with a viciousness that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than sibling rivalry. As adults, she struggled with depression and crippling low self-esteem, while he had achieved material success but carried crushing guilt over the damage he believed he had caused to someone he actually loved deeply. In reading 27961, Cayce revealed a past life connection so dramatic it initially challenged everything the businessman thought he understood about justice and karma. In ancient Persia, their roles had been completely reversed. She had been a powerful queen who ruled with absolute authority, while he had been a lowly servant in her court. But the relationship hadn't been one of mutual respect between ruler and subject. The queen had treated him with contempt, humiliating him publicly, crushing his spirit through constant criticism, and ensuring he knew his place was beneath her notice, except when she needed someone to blame for court problems. The journey toward understanding became even more profound when Cayce revealed the hidden truth behind their current incarnation. The soul who had been the cruel queen had actually requested to experience powerlessness in this lifetime, specifically to develop the compassion and humility that her previous position of authority had prevented her from learning. She had asked to understand what it felt like to be on the receiving end of the treatment she had once dispensed so carelessly. But here's the most extraordinary part of this revelation. The businessman had agreed to help her learn these lessons, even though it meant carrying the burden of being seen as the aggressor. His childhood cruelty toward her wasn't evidence of a dark soul, but rather the fulfillment of a spiritual contract designed to give her the exact experience she needed for her soul's evolution. The decisions they had made in the spiritual realm were driven by love so deep it was willing to sacrifice reputation and easy relationships for the sake of spiritual growth. The businessman's guilt was transformed into understanding when he realized that his sister's current struggles weren't permanent damage, but part of a spiritual curriculum designed to develop qualities that could only emerge through experiencing vulnerability and learning to rebuild self-worth from within. Now, I want to explore how Cayce explained the ultimate purpose behind these challenging soul contracts, because understanding what your family is actually trying to accomplish together will reveal the incredible love that orchestrates even the most difficult relationships. Write in the comments, spiritual contracts, if you're recognizing that your most challenging family relationships might be divinely designed learning experiences rather than random conflicts. The transformation that followed this understanding demonstrates the incredible healing power that emerges when souls recognize their spiritual contracts. Once the businessman understood that his sister had actually volunteered to experience powerlessness and that he had agreed to help her learn these difficult lessons, everything shifted in their relationship. Instead of carrying guilt and avoiding her because of shame over his past behavior, he became her most devoted supporter and encourager. The impact of this role reversal was extraordinary. He began actively working to rebuild the confidence and self-worth that their childhood dynamic had been designed to challenge. Rather than continuing the ancient pattern of power and domination, he chose to complete their karmic circle with love, understanding, and genuine support. His sister, feeling truly seen and valued for the first time, began the journey toward healing that would transform not just her personal life, but her entire life purpose. She eventually recovered completely from her depression and went on to become a highly successful therapist, specializing in helping others heal from childhood trauma. The very experiences that had once seemed like devastating damage became the foundation for her ability to guide others through similar healing processes. Her deep understanding of powerlessness, humility, and the path back to self-worth became her greatest professional assets, allowing her to connect with clients in ways that someone who had never faced such challenges simply couldn't. This reveals the hidden truth about family karma that most people completely misunderstand. The journey these souls were taking together wasn't about punishment, retribution, or working off some cosmic debt through suffering. It was about love expressing itself across lifetimes in ways that our limited human perspective can't always recognize or appreciate while we're in the middle of the experience. The decisions these souls made before incarnating were motivated by the deepest kind of love, the willingness to play difficult roles, to be misunderstood, to carry guilt and shame, all so that everyone involved could develop the spiritual qualities they needed most. Behind the scenes of what appeared to be a tragic family dynamic was actually a carefully orchestrated learning experience designed to accelerate the spiritual evolution of both souls. When we understand that family challenges serve this greater purpose, our entire mindset about difficult relationships shifts from victimhood to appreciation. The transformation happens when we realize that the people who trigger us most intensely are often our greatest spiritual teachers, offering us precisely the experiences our souls requested for growth, even when our human personalities would prefer something much easier and more comfortable. The love that orchestrates these challenging family experiences operates on a level that transcends our everyday understanding of affection and care. It's the kind of love that's willing to sacrifice temporary harmony for eternal growth, that chooses spiritual development over emotional comfort, that sees the divine potential in each soul, and creates exactly the right conditions for that potential to emerge. Now, I want to reveal Cayce's most revolutionary discovery about how individual family members can actually transform entire family systems by choosing love over reaction, because what he called the family healer demonstrates that one person's spiritual choices can break patterns that have persisted for generations. Write in the comments, "Love beyond understanding," if you're beginning to see that your most challenging family experiences might be expressions of a love too profound for your human mind to fully grasp. The most revolutionary aspect of Cayce's family karma teachings emerges in reading 37442, where he revealed that entire family systems can be transformed through the conscious spiritual choices of just one family member. This person, whom he called the family healer, possesses the power to break inherited emotional patterns that have persisted for generations simply by choosing love over reaction, understanding over blame, and spiritual growth over being right. The transformation that occurs when someone steps into this role is profound, because it interrupts the automatic karmic programming that keeps families stuck in repetitive cycles. Every family system has invisible emotional patterns that get triggered whenever certain topics arise, or specific combinations of people gather together. These patterns operate like spiritual software, running the same programs generation after generation, until someone makes the conscious decision to respond differently. The impact of becoming your family's healer begins with a fundamental shift in mindset about what family conflicts actually represent. Instead of seeing arguments, criticism, or challenging behavior as personal attacks that require defensive responses, the family healer learns to recognize these moments as spiritual tests designed to develop patience, compassion, and unconditional love. This perspective shift changes everything because it moves you from being a reactive participant in family drama to being a conscious spiritual student, learning advanced lessons in human relationships. Cayce provided specific guidance for those ready to take on this transformative role. The journey begins with daily prayer for your most difficult family members but not the kind of prayer most people think of. Rather than asking for them to change their behavior or stop being so challenging, you pray for understanding of their soul's journey and the spiritual lessons you're meant to learn together. This practice gradually dissolves the resentment and judgment that fuel family conflicts, replacing them with genuine curiosity about the deeper purpose behind each challenging interaction. The hidden truth about family healing is that it doesn't require everyone to participate consciously. When one person consistently chooses love over reaction, it creates an energetic shift that affects the entire family system. Other family members begin responding differently without understanding why, simply because the familiar patterns they've grown accustomed to triggering are no longer being activated in the expected ways. Behind the scenes of what appears to be one person's individual spiritual practice is actually a systematic rewiring of ancestral patterns that have been passed down through multiple generations. The decisions you make about how to respond to family triggers don't just affect your current relationships. They send healing energy backward to ancestors who carried these same patterns and forward to descendants who would otherwise inherit them. The process involves looking for the spiritual lesson in every family challenge, asking yourself what quality this situation is inviting you to develop. Is this interaction teaching you patience? Is this conflict helping you practice forgiveness? Is this family member's behavior showing you where you still need to develop unconditional love? When you approach family difficulties as spiritual curriculum rather than personal persecution, you begin to see the divine intelligence orchestrating your growth through even the most frustrating circumstances. Now, I want to share with you some of the most documented healing results from families where someone stepped into this role, because the transformations that occurred will show you just how powerful one person's spiritual commitment can be in breaking generational patterns. Write in the comments, "I choose to be the healer," if you're feeling called to step into this role and transform your family's ancient patterns through love rather than reaction. The documented results from families where someone embraced the role of family healer are nothing short of extraordinary. In Cayce's archives, case after case demonstrates the ripple effects that occur when just one person chooses to respond with love instead of reaction. Families that had been torn apart by decades of resentment found themselves reconciling within months of one member changing their approach. Adult children who hadn't spoken to their parents in years suddenly felt compelled to reach out and rebuild relationships they thought were permanently damaged. The transformation extends even to families dealing with the most challenging circumstances: addiction, abuse, and mental illness. These situations, which conventional therapy often struggles to address because they involve such deep-rooted patterns, began showing remarkable improvements when approached from the perspective of soul contracts and karmic healing. The impact occurs because the family healer stops feeding the negative emotional dynamics that have been sustaining the dysfunction, creating space for genuine healing to emerge. One of the most powerful examples of this principle involves a case that demonstrates how understanding soul contracts can transform even the most heartbreaking family situations. A mother came to Cayce in desperation about her adult son who had descended into severe drug and alcohol addiction. He had been stealing from the family, disappearing for months at a time, and creating chaos that was destroying everyone's peace of mind. She was seriously considering cutting off all contact to protect herself and her other children from his destructive behavior. The journey toward understanding began with reading 15672, where Cayce revealed a past life connection that completely reframed this modern family tragedy. During the advanced civilization of Atlantis, these two souls had worked together in one of the great spiritual temples, but their roles had been dramatically different from their current incarnation. The woman who was now the struggling mother had been a powerful temple priestess, someone entrusted with guiding spiritual seekers on their path toward enlightenment. However, power had corrupted her spiritual mission. Behind the scenes of her prestigious position, she had become increasingly self-serving, using her authority to manipulate students for personal gain rather than genuinely helping them grow. Her teachings had become distorted, leading many sincere spiritual seekers astray from their authentic development. The most tragic victim of her corruption had been her son's soul, who in that lifetime had been one of her most devoted students. This devoted student had placed complete trust in her guidance, following her teachings with absolute faith and dedication. But her corrupted instruction had severely damaged his spiritual development, leading him away from truth rather than toward it. The impact of this betrayal had been devastating. He had died in that lifetime having lost faith in all spiritual guidance, convinced that anyone claiming to offer wisdom was ultimately self-serving and deceptive. The hidden truth behind their current family dynamic suddenly became clear. They had returned as mother and son so she could learn the deeper meaning of unconditional love while he worked. Through his inability to trust spiritual guidance or believe that anyone could genuinely care about his well-being without hidden motives. Now, let me share with you the specific guidance Cayce gave this mother that led to one of the most remarkable healing stories in his archives, because her decision to follow his advice demonstrates how understanding soul contracts can create miracles even in the most hopeless-seeming situations. Write in the comments, "Ancient patterns repeating," if you're recognizing how past life dynamics might be playing out in your current family challenges. Cayce's guidance for this mother was both challenging and transformative. He explained that cutting off her son would repeat the exact same abandonment pattern that had created their karmic bond in the first place. In Atlantis, when her corrupted teaching had led him astray, she had essentially abandoned her responsibility to guide him properly, leaving him spiritually lost and unable to trust. If she abandoned him again in this lifetime, they would simply recreate the same cycle in future incarnations until the lesson was finally learned. The transformation required was profound because it demanded that she learn what genuine unconditional love actually means, not the enabling kind of love that makes excuses for destructive behavior, but the kind that holds space for someone's highest potential while refusing to participate in their self-destruction. The journey ahead would test every aspect of her spiritual development, forcing her to find the balance between compassion and wisdom that she had failed to achieve as an Atlantean priestess. Cayce's specific guidance revealed the hidden truth about how real healing occurs in impossible family situations. She was to maintain loving contact and emotional availability while establishing firm boundaries around enabling his addiction. This meant she could offer love, encouragement, and moral support, but she would not provide money, shelter for destructive behavior, or make excuses that allowed him to avoid the natural consequences of his choices. The impact of this approach was that it created what Cayce called healing space, an environment where her son could experience unconditional love without the safety net that would prevent him from hitting bottom and choosing recovery. She had to learn to trust his soul's journey while watching him struggle, believing that love combined with appropriate boundaries would eventually guide him back to his spiritual path. Behind the scenes of what appeared to be a mother watching her son destroy himself was actually a sophisticated spiritual process. Her decisions to remain emotionally available while refusing to enable were slowly demonstrating to his wounded soul that it was possible for someone to care without having hidden agendas, to offer guidance without manipulation, and to love without conditions or expectations. The process took 3 years of the most difficult spiritual practice imaginable, holding space for healing while resisting every impulse to control the outcome. She had to watch him struggle, fail, and suffer while maintaining her commitment to love without enabling, trust without naivety, and hope without attachment to specific results. The transformation that eventually occurred validated everything Cayce had revealed about their soul contract. Her son gradually began to trust that her love was genuine, that her boundaries came from wisdom rather than rejection, and that recovery was possible without losing his spiritual authenticity. He entered a treatment program and not only achieved sobriety, but discovered his own calling to help others heal from addiction. He eventually became a highly successful addiction counselor, using his deep understanding of spiritual betrayal and the journey back to trust as the foundation for helping others navigate similar challenges. Now, I want to explore the broader spiritual principle that Cayce revealed about Earth itself and why families serve as our primary spiritual classrooms, because understanding this cosmic perspective will help you see every family interaction as part of an incredible universal curriculum, designed to teach us how to love unconditionally. Write in the comments, "Love holds space," if you're understanding that real love sometimes means allowing people to face their consequences while maintaining emotional support. The transformation in how we understand family relationships reaches its most profound level when we grasp Cayce's revelation about the true nature of human incarnation itself. Families aren't random collections of people who happen to share DNA and living space. They're carefully chosen spiritual curricula designed with precision to develop the exact qualities each soul needs most for their evolutionary journey. Every interaction, from the mundane conversations over breakfast to the most heated arguments during family gatherings, serves the greater purpose of spiritual evolution. This perspective shift changes everything about how you interpret daily family life. That annoying habit your spouse has that triggers you every single day? It's a graduate-level course in patience. The way your teenager challenges your authority, advanced training in letting go of control while maintaining loving guidance. The family member who seems to drain your energy whenever you're around them, a masterclass in setting healthy boundaries while practicing compassion. The journey toward understanding this cosmic curriculum reveals that Earth itself functions as a spiritual university where souls enroll to learn the advanced lessons of love, forgiveness, and consciousness expansion. Your family represents your primary classroom, complete with perfectly designed challenges that couldn't be replicated in any other setting. The decisions you make about how to respond to these daily spiritual tests determine not just your family harmony, but your soul's advancement through multiple lifetimes. But Cayce's revelations about family connections go even deeper than shared learning experiences. In reading 281-7, he revealed something that modern science is only beginning to understand. We don't just inherit physical genes from our parents, we also inherit what he called soul patterns that carry the emotional and spiritual imprints of past life experiences accumulated across multiple incarnations. The impact of this discovery is staggering because it means that many of the traits, talents, phobias, and even physical ailments that seem to run in families aren't just genetic predispositions. They're karmic inheritances passed down through soul lineages, spiritual DNA that carries the accumulated experiences of ancestors who may have lived centuries ago. That inexplicable fear of water that no one in your family can explain? It might trace back to a traumatic drowning in a past life. The musical talent that seems to skip generations randomly? Perhaps it's the soul memory of lifetimes spent as musicians and composers. Behind the scenes of what we call family resemblances and inherited characteristics is actually a complex system of spiritual inheritance that operates parallel to physical genetics. The hidden truth is that souls often incarnate in family lines specifically to work through inherited soul patterns, either to heal them or to develop them further depending on what each soul needs for growth. The transformation occurs when you realize that breaking negative family patterns isn't just about improving your current relationships. You're actually healing spiritual wounds that may have affected your soul lineage for generations. Every conscious choice you make to respond with love instead of repeating inherited emotional reactions sends healing energy both backward through your ancestral line and forward to future generations who will benefit from the spiritual work you're doing today. Now, I want to share with you one of the most documented cases of inherited soul patterns from Cayce's archives, because this family's story will show you exactly how these ancient spiritual inheritances manifest in modern life, and how understanding them can break cycles that have persisted for centuries. Write in the comments, "Healing my lineage," if you're realizing that your personal spiritual work has the power to heal patterns that extend far beyond your individual life. One of the most striking documented cases of inherited soul patterns involves a family where 3 generations of women had died tragically young from heart problems, creating a legacy of fear that haunted every female descendant. The family came to Cayce in 1938, terrified because the current generation was already showing early signs of the same cardiac issues that had claimed their mothers and grandmothers. Medical doctors could find no clear genetic explanation for the pattern, leaving the family, feeling helpless against what seemed like an inescapable fate. The transformation in their understanding began with reading 19241, where Cayce revealed that these heart problems weren't purely medical conditions, but karmic reminders of a spiritual betrayal that had occurred in ancient Persia. In that distant lifetime, these souls had been part of a close-knit spiritual community, gathered around a beloved teacher who had dedicated his life to guiding them toward enlightenment. Their teacher had loved them unconditionally, sharing his wisdom freely and creating a sacred space where their souls could flourish. But jealousy had poisoned their hearts against the very person who had devoted himself to their spiritual welfare. Consumed by envy over the teacher's wisdom and the respect he commanded, they had conspired together to betray him, spreading lies about his character and ultimately destroying his reputation within the broader spiritual community. The impact of their deception had been devastating. Their teacher had died with a broken heart, literally and figuratively destroyed by the betrayal of those he had loved most. The journey toward understanding revealed that their current heart problems weren't just medical issues, but soul memories of the guilt and anguish they had carried since that ancient betrayal. Their hearts were literally carrying the imprint of having broken another's heart through jealousy and deception. The pattern would continue affecting future generations until the spiritual wound was acknowledged and healed at its source. But Cayce didn't just identify the problem, he provided a specific technique that could break this inherited pattern and heal the entire soul lineage. In reading 115211, he outlined what he called the Ancestral Healing Prayer, a practice so powerful that it could transform generational karma accumulated over centuries. The process involves 40 consecutive days of dedicated spiritual work, creating a sustained, healing vibration that can reach across time itself. The technique begins each morning by visualizing your family tree as an actual tree of brilliant light, where each family member, living, deceased, and yet to be born, appears as a glowing leaf connected to the same spiritual source. This visualization creates an energetic bridge that transcends the normal boundaries of time and space, allowing healing energy to flow to ancestors who lived centuries ago and descendants who haven't yet incarnated. Once this connection is established, you speak the healing words that carry transformative power. I send love and forgiveness to all souls in my family line, past, present, and future. I release all inherited pain and claim only inherited wisdom. I am the healer of my lineage. Behind the scenes of this simple practice is a profound spiritual technology that works because time is ultimately an illusion in the realm of consciousness. Now, I want to share with you the most controversial discovery Cayce made about family relationships that challenges everything we think we know about the roles people play in our lives, because understanding this principle will completely transform how you see the family members who seem to cause the most problems. Write in the comments, "I heal my ancestors," if you're feeling called to take responsibility for breaking negative patterns that have affected your family line for generations. The most controversial revelation in Cayce's readings about family relationships emerges from reading 57498, where he explained that some of our most difficult family members are actually advanced souls who have volunteered to play challenging roles specifically to accelerate our spiritual growth. These evolved beings sacrifice their own reputation, comfort, and easy relationships in this lifetime to serve as catalysts for everyone else's awakening process. The transformation in how we interpret family dysfunction becomes radical when we realize that the family member everyone considers the black sheep, the one who's always causing drama or making choices that embarrass the family, might actually be the most spiritually mature soul in the group. They've agreed to carry the shadow aspects of family dynamics so that others can learn compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love through dealing with their challenging behavior. This hidden truth doesn't excuse harmful actions, but it reframes them as spiritual service rather than personal failing. The impact of understanding this principle has helped countless families move from judgment and rejection toward appreciation for the difficult lessons being offered. Behind the scenes of what appears to be family dysfunction is often a sophisticated spiritual curriculum, where the most challenging person is actually providing graduate-level training in advanced spiritual qualities. The journey toward recognizing these advanced souls requires looking beyond surface behaviors to see the spiritual function they're serving in everyone's development. That family member who struggles with addiction, who can't seem to get their life together, who creates chaos wherever they go. They might be offering their relatives the opportunity to practice love without conditions, support without enabling, and faith without attachment to outcomes. The decisions these souls make before incarnating demonstrate the ultimate expression of spiritual love. They're willing to be misunderstood, blamed, and even rejected by the very people they're trying to help evolve. They understand that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is a challenge that forces them to discover their own inner strength and capacity for unconditional love. This brings us to Cayce's most comprehensive revelation about the true purpose of human existence itself. In reading 3744, he explained that Earth functions as a spiritual university, where souls enroll specifically to learn the advanced curriculum of love in all its forms: romantic love, parental love, familial love, and ultimately, divine love that transcends all personal preferences and conditions. Your family represents your primary classroom within this cosmic educational system, complete with perfectly designed challenges that couldn't be replicated in any other setting. Every relationship becomes a carefully crafted course in soul development. From the introductory lessons in patience you learn dealing with annoying siblings to the advanced coursework in forgiveness offered by your most difficult relatives. The mindset shift this creates is extraordinary because it transforms every family gathering from a potentially stressful obligation into a sacred opportunity for spiritual advancement. Now, let me conclude by sharing the ultimate revelation that ties together everything we've explored today about the profound spiritual purpose behind every family relationship and why understanding these soul connections is one of the most transformative discoveries you can make in this lifetime. Write in the comments, "We're all students together," if you're beginning to see your family as your spiritual classroom and every challenging relationship as an opportunity for divine growth. When you truly understand that every family challenge is actually a reunion of ancient souls coming together to continue the eternal work of learning how to love unconditionally, everything shifts. Every difficult conversation becomes a sacred opportunity. Every moment of forgiveness becomes a step toward spiritual freedom. Every act of understanding heals not just the present, but lifetimes of accumulated pain between souls who have chosen to journey together across centuries. The beauty of Edgar Cayce's revelations is that they transform family relationships from random biological accidents into purposeful spiritual partnerships. Your mother's criticism, your father's distance, your sibling's success, your child's rebellion, all of it serves the greater purpose of spiritual evolution, helping each soul discover their divine nature through the intimate laboratory of family life. If you've stayed with me through this entire exploration, you're clearly someone who recognizes that there's a deeper meaning behind everything we experience. This kind of content, diving into the profound spiritual truths that explain why life unfolds the way it does, is exactly what I love sharing here on this channel. When you subscribe, you're joining a community of souls who are ready to see beyond surface appearances and understand the incredible love that orchestrates even our most challenging experiences. Leave a comment saying, "This message found me," if you made it all the way through, and you're feeling that shift in how you see your own family dynamics. I genuinely love connecting with people who are on this journey of deeper understanding, and your comments help me know which topics resonate most with souls who are ready for these advanced spiritual teachings. And if you felt that connection throughout our conversation today, that sense of recognition when truth lands in your heart, hit that like button. It tells me that this content is serving its purpose of helping people see their lives through the lens of eternal love and spiritual growth. There's a video right here that complements this topic perfectly. It explores how Edgar Cayce revealed the specific techniques for recognizing your own soul group and understanding which family members you've been traveling with across multiple lifetimes. Click and continue with me over there, because once you start seeing these connections, you'll want to understand every aspect of how these ancient relationships are playing out in your current life.